Hello, I'm Cormac. You're listening to Queerly Beloved, supported by Amazon Music. In this series, I invite DJs and musicians, friends and allies from the LGBTQ plus community to talk about music, queerness, and anything else that shaped their unique story. My guest today is Robert Owens. Now, when we talk about the origins of house music in Chicago in the early 80s, Robert's name is inevitable. Starting out as a DJ and vocalist, Robert soon formed Fingers Inc. alongside Larry Heard and Ron Wilson. He is that voice. Together, they released formative house music that is still shaping electronic music 40 years later. Robert is still DJing and producing. If you take a glance at his output online, there are over 1,000 tracks with his name on them. It's a testament to how prolific an artist he is. You can find a playlist for all the music mentioned in today's episode and every episode at the link in the episode description. I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Robert face to face in Berlin. It was such a joy, such a thoughtful and caring soul. He has stories about some of my favourite artists, including Sylvester. I hope you enjoy listening to him as much as I enjoyed speaking with him. I'm so happy to have you here, Robert.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful to be here.
It's really a personal pleasure for me. I'm really such a fan of
Thank you.
of
I'm
your
grateful.
music. And also, the word legend gets thrown around a lot, but you are actually within house music and within dance music culture an actual legend.
I'm grateful to be here and, still have stories and memories, from the past to pass on to, the younger generation that I meet, it's a real blessing, even to date when I play often, a lot of young I have a real strong young demographic of people that follow me these days, and they always say, "My mom told me to come see you," or "My father." Or, having an opportunity to meet journalists or people that's just been involved in the scene and, that are younger than me and they know anything about me, and it's like, that's a blessing, that you've grown and you still have it in your heart to want to give, and learn as well, because I think no matter, how old you are, you constantly should keep your mind open and receptive to learning.
I'm going to ask you, as I ask all of my guests,
Mhm,
Robert, who you are,
mhm,
how you identify, and what it is you
mhm.
do.
I am Robert Owens. The guy next door. I could have been your gardener, someone, from that perspective.
You're a very
Uh
glamorous gardener.
Thank you. What do? I sing, I write, I dance. I actually started as in the clubs dancing, and people would spot me dancing. But even that, it goes back to I remember, like, as a little kid, my aunt would do these, they a lot of families, urban families in Chicago would do these cook-offs where one week it would be at Tilly's, the next week it was at Martha's, and they'd have, like they might do, fried fish or something, spaghetti, and then have card games, and then they'd have someone pick the music and dance, and I was the dancer and the selector, and, "Yeah, yeah, go and put them records together, boy, you can pick the right ones to play," and all of that. So I think that was kinda installed in me the entertainment thing. It's like people enjoy me being an entertainer,
Mm.
entertaining them. So that was a big part of my just natural nature, as a little child, and that growing up, I remember, like, always meeting people in the neighborhood because, I was always a people kinda person. I could just walk down the street and just draw the attention of someone, and we would just start talking. Instantly, instinctively, that's been kinda my, a magnetism or something with people, and, I'd be like, "Can you play some drums, man? Can you sing some?" And I was always trying to put bands and different things together entertaining-wise, and that might have stemmed from that earlier period, but this evolved into, like, even coming up and, eventually, being introduced to the, Warehouse Music Box and all of these clubs, but even before that, there were gay clubs up north on the north side of Chicago. This is where I probably first got my kind of freedom in venturing out of the side of the family to get a stronger identity of me and who I was without fear,
Mhm.
you know? So I would go up to clubs up north like, God, what was one of them? The Den One, I think, and that's where Ron Hardy became famous before he went to catch one in LA
Uh-huh.
to become a resident there. He was in Chicago at the Den One, and I was there a lot. I had fake ID and everything.
Uh,
It's like because I could let myself go, and this is before house music even came into the scene. I came into the disco scene, and a lot of urban tracks that were 12-inch mixes were the things that were DJs were playing back in that period. So I came into that scene, from that perspective to learn more about me and who I was. Because at one point, I didn't know who I was. I was whoever my family wanted me to be, and you living up to their, judgment of who they felt you should be. So I had to escape up north to find the other part of who Robert Owens was as just a human being. Then the music thing came in, but along the journey, I still was like meeting different people. "Can you do something, man? Can you sing? Can you dance?" And I'd get in talent shows and all of this, and, I would win off and on, and just I was like, "Well, okay, something is there." And then singing came into play. DJing was always there with another part of me that people, may not realize. It wasn't like I just jumped up to become a DJ. I was DJing, and that stemmed from the earlier period that I mentioned to you where the aunts and different people would say, "You select the music." So I was always thought that maybe I could be a DJ or something when that finally came in, to play, but I also was doing, like, little block club parties where we would clean out a basement, and I
mhm.
had 1 light and, 1 turntable before the whole mix thing even came in, and I did handwritten flyers and passed them
Amazing.
around to neighborhood, told people at, schools and everything, "Come," and we always have a sellout party in
Yeah.
these things, so that was instinctively in me as a young person also, and then with the group thing, often, the guys' girlfriends wanted to come to the rehearsals and stuff, and it was always a clash with them there, and, that caused me to, like, make the group disperse where we didn't end up staying together,
Mm.
and probably too because I was the one that was in the closet. So I was
Yeah.
annoyed with the girls being there because I wanted to work,
Mm.
you know, beyond being in the closet. I was there to see what we could create.
Yes.
You know, and, I was like, "This is a distraction, this in the way." I was like, "I'm not here with" in my mind, I'm like, "I'm not here with nobody, I'm not cruising nobody or nothing. I wanna work, I wanna see if we could actually make something of
Yeah.
ourselves." So I found myself constantly moving and searching for who Robert Owens was,
Hmm.
you know?
How does Robert Owens, identify today after such a journey?
I would identify today as a blessing that I'm still here.
It's beautiful.
You know, along this journey, through life in general, through drugs, through the whole AIDS crisis and everything, me and lots of us have lost a lot of people that we cared about, and I'd say to anyone, you take them into your heart, and they become a part of your journey.
Mm.
You should always be able to look up and smile and think about this individual, and imagine them smiling down back at you from above. And
Mm.
often, even at the beginning of my performances, it was like I've had people standing at the front of the stage looking like they want to kill me.
Mm.
And I'm like, "Okay, this is gonna be hard, okay, but what do you do? Sink or swim?" So, I just go in on it, and I know that I came to give you love.
Mm.
Even if you reject it, I know I came in there with a a good purpose, and
Mhm.
so I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna reduce the fear, and I'm gonna go in with what I came to do. And usually, because even like, let me think, where was it? Was it Ireland or, Scotland?
Mhm.
I was in Scotland and this happened. I think, Glasgow, and they were standing in the sub club, and they were standing in front of me like they wanted to kill me, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be hard." And then 15 minutes into the set, one of them said, "You know, you're actually alright." was like I was like, that for me, that's really beautiful because
Mm,
this has happened throughout my career, in many cases where, you still you even if the fear was there from that first instant, you had to revert back to why I'm doing this. What am I
mm,
doing this for reason and purpose? It's like a artist coming into this business. I would always say, "What are you doing this for?" It should be reason and purpose, not for fame. If
mm,
you crossed one of your experiences along your journey and you stop someone from looking at you from a negative viewpoint, you've helped a whole lot of other people that think just like you.
mm.
Even if we look different, they can be in another coat of skin, but they might have the same sentiments, feelings, and emotion. You help them secure or strengthen their self by your courage.
So when you were playing records for your aunts and your mum's friends and moving
Mhm,
around houses, and I'm sure they were a tough audience sometimes, but
mhm.
were you in Chicago at that time?
Yeah, my whole probably the root of me in the music scenario of things was in Chicago. And but I was like from a child, I was always kind of passed around. You take him, you take him.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of grew up like from house to house. And then probably at 16, 17, I left home. I think I had 2 jobs in Chicago. And I got my first apartment probably 17 or something,
Wow.
and I didn't even have all of the money, but the landlord, he said, "I see something honest in your face. Imma trust that you're gonna get it," and I had my first studio apartment up north in Chicago off of Sheridan, somewhere up there. I can't remember the exact name of the street. But from there, I was like, "You can make it." I left home and I just never looked back. But I was always a individual that wanted to work and do something and
Mm,
escape outside of the whole family environment of what I seen, because it was not a lot of belief and it was a lot of rivalry and jealousy and all of this, and I just never wanted to be around that. And then again, the whole side, I think, I came to my father, and said, "Okay, I'm gay." And he just couldn't believe it, and so, that just burnt a bridge with the family. I felt from that
mm,
point of view, and it was like, well, I was like, "At least I'm being honest with you."
mhm,
And he couldn't take it after for a while, but eventually we made up and became friends again, but I didn't even know if I was gay at the time, I just
mm.
said it.
Well, I
Because
guess
I was around, a lot of, gay people were always drawn to me. I didn't think I had a girlfriend even at this point, but I
mm,
just said it, I don't know why. But, and I actually had a girlfriend at that time, and we started going this is a period where I was first started going to the warehouse, music box, these kind of places. I was always gay people were drawn to me all the time, and especially guys were drawn to me more than girls, and at one point, I was like, "The guys look better than the girls." Like, "Wow, do these really nice-looking guys keep trying to hit on me and stuff?" It's like, "You look better than her." It's like I was like, "So maybe I should check it out."
check it out. And those early days when you were, selecting music for your aunts, what kind of records were you playing, or what
Oh
what was
god,
the
Bobby Blue Band, what
okay.
she had? She is a lot of probably, I said the Stylistics,
Oh, nice.
the, Isley Brothers, Ohio Players, a lot of that kind of music, let's say
Uh-huh.
Brick House, the Commodores, um, a lot of the probably that urban soul stuff they would have in their collection, which, when I started buying music and going out to these places like the Den One, Coconuts was another famous one up north in Chicago where I would skate because meeting the gay clientele at this age, they're the ones that start taking me up north into these places, so I say, "Maybe I am gay."
Uh-huh.
Like, because I say again, I was, like, analyzing the things, but
Mm.
not knowing, but this is where I started learning about music and, like, a lot of these urban tracks, those DJs had 12-inch mixes. I was like, "That ain't on the mix that my aunt be playing," because they had the little 45s. So, this is where I started learning about the extended 12-inch mixes of tracks and everything
And the
going.
breakdowns.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
all of this, but, they just had the regular little 45s and at the home parties and everything, but it was a fusion of those type, artists. Motown was
Mhm.
another one, but it's I could probably go down the
Yeah.
list of different vocalists and
So for the playlist, can you choose one track from that time?
I gave you a
You
list of a
did, you
couple
gave me
things,
great
but I
ones.
can't remember it right off tongue. I know "Harvest of the World." Yeah, that was a great one. I
That's a
remember that.
beautiful.
Yeah, everybody would stop and the whole family would get up and start dancing on.
Also, the message of that track is
Yeah,
just
when will it be a harvest for the world,
it's as relevant
so,
now as
uh
it ever was. Were there any queer people in your family?
Yes, there were queer people in our family, well, I think, I can't remember exactly, aunts, cousins, yeah, it was a lot of
Oh, yeah?
but it was kinda hush-hushed, so this is where I'd say that, probably where I didn't even have a fear of if I was or if I wasn't, it didn't matter because, Aunt Suella or whoever, well, she's gay, don't nobody bother her. Well, she would beat you up anyway, so they she was one of the I ain't saying her exact name, but I had one of them tough aunts, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, "What you say?" Yeah, I seen her in a, bar one time, she beat up about 5 men, was picking them up, throwing them over the bar, and it was like she was a tough one, so,
Love her.
yeah, so, she was good to hang out with, you knew you were safe, yeah, but nobody said they wouldn't dare she woulda beat you up if you tried, but her and, who else? I had some cousins that was gay. I think my first cousin is the one took me first time to the warehouse.
Uh-huh.
So, I think they had suspicions because I would hang out with that cousin and stuff, but I think just as a young person, I didn't really care, guys and girls was attracted to me, I
Yeah.
just thought it was fascinating, I never looked at it as a label or a problem, I think, coming up, and I think this is also where, the innocence of things come in. I think I became a little more shielded as I got older and went into normal work environments. Say, for instance, where I worked in a hospital, I was afraid if anybody knew or something because you're in this whole big environment of a collective of different people.
Mhm.
So I was like, "Oh, maybe I could lose my job or anything if they just know." Or just afraid, I've been in certain situations around certain straight people where I felt like, "No, you gotta really, you gotta look tough or something, or,
Mm.
this could work against you."
Mhm. Do you remember musical artists that you connected with through their queerness? Because I didn't
Mhm.
have any known queer people in my family, so my first doorway into into queer culture was through music. So,
Mhm.
like,
Well,
listening.
David Bowie, I thought was queer and, like, his just whole glam dressing up and everything.
Uh-huh.
I went to one of his
Did
concerts and
you?
everything, and I actually I kind of met him in Prague.
Wow.
One time, he was coming from the church, that big church in Prague, I can't remember the name of it. But he was leaving the church and I was going up to the church, and then I just lit up and he stopped and he smiled and and I didn't know I was, like, so emotional and stuff, and then he just smiled and then he kept walking and I was like, "Why didn't you say something?" And so, I was like, "But he stopped."
Well, that's an acknowledgement. It was an
So, yeah,
acknowledgement.
same thing with, with Tina Turner, the singing
Yeah.
Knightsbridge. I was coming out of, is it what's the
Harvey Nicks,
yeah,
Harvey
across from
Nichols.
Harrods.
Yeah, Harvey
Yeah, I
Nichols.
was coming out of there and, on the other side of the street, and, uh, she stopped, and I just went into shock. I was wanted to say something, but she was with these 2 big guards, and then she stopped and smiled, and then eventually she just went on walking, and that happened with her,
Mhm.
David Bowie, and Prince. 3 situations
Wow.
where they stopped, but,
They
I
saw
was too
something.
afraid to, like, open up. But I
Prin
guess you just never would think as a kid, you would never think that you're gonna see that level of a
Yeah.
artist in person.
Maybe you're vibrating on the same frequency as them, Robert. Is there a record or a track you could choose from that time, like around a queer awakening around a time when you notice other queer people in music or your cousins or from around that time?
The Chambers Brothers, and the track is called "Stealing Watermelons."
Beautiful.
Yeah, that I remember coming up hearing that. I would hear that, in the house environment, and then we brought it into, like, the club circuit,
Uh-huh.
and, a lot of because I did the straight and the gay clubs, I came up around doing even some parties, the basement parties, we would have some like gangs and people affiliated with gangs and stuff, and they would do this dance called stepping back then, you know?
Mhm.
This probably similar to capoeira or something like that, where it was like instead of fighting, they would have a dance off.
Fab.
And it's almost like, the hustling, you remember the dance hustling?
Uh-huh.
I used to do that dance where it's probably a masculine version of hustling, I
Uh-huh.
would say, and I did all those formats of dancing, but in this period is coming up where, that was one of the records that kinda transitioned me and my thoughts and emotions into a phase of being secure with who I was and escaping the whole family environment.
Do you think that comes with finding a positive experience of community?
Mhm. Yeah, meeting other like-minded individuals and, starting to hang out with, these first gay clubs up north and meeting straight and gay people that
Mm.
hung together, and they were family.
Mhm.
It was like, again, most of my friends were straight, but they had no problem hanging around someone gay, it's like, "Yeah, you still my brother. Your gay ass my brother still." And, so it was never no problem, it's like knowing that I wasn't judged there, but I'm judged at home in a home
Mm.
environment where this is supposed to be my blood. I'm not gonna fear stepping outside of these boundaries that you've created.
It's beautiful. And what were those early clubs like?
Oh god, it's wild, mad, and the freedom of people, just how even from the butchest to the most feminine, to the transsexuals, all people were just openly their selves,
Mm.
and to just see that, was inspiring, and then to become a DJ and then seeing it from the other perspective of, individuals releasing a whole 'nother side of themselves through the music, and
Mm.
this is also where, for me, music has a real healing about, it's a healing experience, when you're well, coming up in a lot of those, party environments or going to those, events. It was always like a healing experience, to see people, they all felt like they were in a church experience, they were delivered
Mm.
after, I remember times leaving the warehouse and limping out. You think places like the Paradise Garage, they had a changing room where you went in and you changed your clothes when you got there. You put on your dance outfit, which would have
Mm.
been soaking wet the next morning after you finished, and you were limping out of there, so you went to those, environments to release and to be healed,
Yes.
and you carried that throughout the week with you.
And seeing that in other people's incredibly encouraging, and
Mm,
because you kinda know that within yourself that that heals you, and
mm,
then you see it happening collectively, and
and
there's
that's
a
the
connection
beautiful.
there because 'cause you're like, "Oh, it heals you too, you get it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the beautiful point of it. Yeah, so a lot of the clubs, I think that's what I would get from the clubs in those earlier stages. And again, I said you carried that throughout the week. You were at your job singing those songs, and so even the annoying, a person next to you working with you couldn't even get on your nerve because you locked into the
It's like
memory
you
of.
fell in love. That's what it's like when you fall in love,
Yeah,
nothing bothers you.
uh,
Were there any early loves in those days?
God. I think I probably, was in love with everybody, the postman to my doctor, everybody I probably looked at, I was in love with her. I think, love was like being in a candy store with people, but no.
Mm.
I had a few relationships, but nothing never stuck because people were never, as faithful as me. I could say I was always the most faithful in every relationship I
Mm.
was in, and if, they cheated or broke that bond, It just, it
Yeah.
just dissolved,
Mhm.
and I think the older you get, you just become kind of numb almost to it, where you're just like, "Oh god, why even waste my time?" But you never say never.
You never say never.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit like that journey you describe of, always coming at it from the attitude of love and
Mm,
contribution. Maybe there's
mm.
something to take into the relationships as well. But as
Mm.
well, you as you get older, you have your wits about you a bit
Yeah, and
more.
as you get older, you find what's most important,
Mm,
and, I think I took on this whole energy that my career is the most important thing. If I think that that's being threatened, I would instantly let you go. So
mm,
there's a strong barrier up now because that's the first love.
mhm.
So I created that kind of scenario going on, and so if I feel threatened, I would instantly drop someone
Yeah.
quickly because it's like, that's my lifeline, I'm not gonna let you destroy that because that's the thing that has saved me and kept me going.
That's beautiful. I mean, you drew that parallel between house music and gospel, that kind
Mm,
of transcendence. It's almost like an evangelism that we can experience on dance floors.
mm,
So you knew you had that in you and you could
mm,
see that in other people and you knew you could select records.
mm.
From this moment when you're finding your community out in the clubs, how did the transition come of like, I'm going to contribute music?
I think I started putting my voice back then we had cassettes. I used to have a Pioneer cassette deck with pitch control, like,
Oh,
you could use it like a
like a
2 inch, yeah,
turntable. Oh,
turntable,
oh.
yeah, and I used to do a lot of overdubbing of vocals, um, on cassettes where I had a few different cassettes and I'd overdub, and some of the early things that I gave Ron Hardy and Frankie Knuckles were things that I did where I splice edited, pause edited, and created things. So I also started, singing and recording my voice just on cassettes, and during when I would play, I had one job in Chicago where I was playing, I think, 5 nights a week at this pub. And so I had plenty time to just play around, and I'd start putting my voice onto the cassettes and playing them over the tracks, and I was like, "This is my friend, what y'all think of him?" So this is later,
That's a good
past
trick.
when I was younger, and forming the bands, that had it kinda went out the window, but when I started working in the clubs, I started doing this, and
Ah,
so, I didn't tell nobody it was me at first. They would say, "He got something there, something's going on," and then, eventually, I think the first break of me actually taking it to another stage was, meeting Larry Heard.
mm,
Someone brought him to a gig that I was playing, or one of the protege of mine, Tony Harris, he was playing, and he introduced me to Larry, and from there, Larry asked me, he gave me some things on cassette, so the first things he gave me was, "Can You Feel It," Washing Machine, Mystery of Love, those tracks.
that's just insane to think about.
And so from there, Ron Hardy got sick one night, and Robert Williams, who was the founder that brought Frankie and Ronnie out, those clubs, he asked me would I come and fill in for Ron Hardy at the Music Box. So I go down and I had the cassette with those tracks on them, and I played Mystery of Love, I think about maybe 4 times, and
Uh-huh.
every time I put it on, it looked like people was in trance and people was hollering, "Wow!" And I was like, "Okay, this kid got something here going on." And I think a few days later, he called me and asked me to come over to his house. He said that he had some things he wanted me to check. And I was like, "Okay, so I'll bring some of my words over because I was always writing."
Mm.
And, I brought some words over, and he put on I think the first thing he put on was a path, and I just instantly said, "Wait, I think I got some words that'll match that." And then I just instantly come, "One day you'll wake up, you'll find yourself in a dream, overthrown by fiction, laced in fantasy," and on and on. And he was like, "That's good," and he started playing the bass, boom, 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 boom. And that from there, I, got him to record it, and then, I took it home and I put the Virgo tracks at the end of it, which
Mhm.
was I think Marshall Jefferson might have been involved in that, but I took that, drum loop thing and put it at the end, and I played it at a couple parties, then I gave it to Frankie Knuckles, and Frankie started playing it, and it just blew up and became huge,
Wow.
and that was just from that bass line and me doing that Virgo track edit at the end of that, and we're on a path we must take, and then the drums come in, doo, 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 and that just blew up because of Frankie first, and then gave it to Ron, and so, then I started, going back over Larry's house, and just we built up a collection of things,
Uh-huh.
and the whole work ethic was that he would play an instrumental, and I'd pick a word that I
Mm.
thought matched, and that was out the whole duration of our relationship, knowing each other, that was kind of the scenario.
Uh-huh.
And, at one point, he even lived, next door to me, even, knock on the door, say, "Come over." He also lived around the corner from me once, and he was like, "Oh, I got something," and I run around the corner and see what he had, and just take my words, and then instantly even bring down the walls. That the doorbell rings in there, and we's like, "It's a mistake," but, and we heard it at the garage because we gave it to Larry Levan, and he played it at the garage, and it's like, "Oh, he gonna hear the mistake," and the doorbell ring, and people screamed. They like it was a effect. So, I think that reverts back to the whole emphasis of house music being a feeling, you
Yes,
know?
and I think your lyrics, I mean, your voice is phenomenal.
Thank you, I'm
You're
grateful.
you're so welcome. And when you were writing, when were you writing?
God, even I used to work in Chicago at a hospital called Evanston Hospital,
Uh-huh.
and, first I was a nutrition assistant in the dietary area. I was doing all of that kinda madness all throughout the dietary area in this hospital. Then I moved up to shipping and receiving, and so, I was doing all of the inventory and all of this in the hospital, and so I used to learn I learned how to, the whole run of what I needed to do throughout the day. I was pretty quick with learning and absorbing information on things, so I would learn my route and what I needed to do, hematology or whatever, so I do my carts and get them out fast, and then they had the private personal bathrooms. So I used to go in the bathrooms and just take the toilet paper and start writing on the toilet paper. Bring Down the Walls was wrote on toilet paper
Uh-huh.
in one of those private rooms. Never No More Lonely, loads of songs. So I had all these songs on toilet paper. Then later I would try to transfer over to notebook paper.
Yes.
But a lot of my early songs was done that way, and sometimes I'm like I had even fell asleep after being at the warehouse all night and then coming to work, doing my rounds, saying, "Oh, Imma try to write something," and passed out, woke up, and my shift was over, and it's like, "Oh my god," and then it's just like it's like you trying to sneak in to hit the time card or saying, "No, should I hit the time card? Maybe I just leave and say I forgot
Yeah.
to punch out."
So
So
you were getting lyrics and inspiration and that kind of inspiration flow you were getting it just on the move in your day to day.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Even now to date, like, I might just be on a train or walking to the shop or something, and something will hit my mind, and I instantly pull out my phone and
Mm,
put it down.
mm,
Those aha moments, you
yeah.
try to capture them, and a lot working as, a team when you're working with others in studios, I call it aha moments. We all working, and at some point we hear something, "Ah!" It's like, "Get it down." It's like, that's very important.
Can you tell me about the warehouse?
The warehouse. Way back in the warehouse days of glory. Ooh,
I
yeah.
have to ask you about Larry, I have to ask you about Frankie. I have you here
Okay,
now, so
the warehouse was something else. You seen caricatures, people that, you Nora Desmond to Nona Hendrix, you seen all kind of characters, people that they dressed like old Hollywood stars and stuff. So you seen everything in there, and I think but it was a family unit.
mm,
And I said, this is back when, the whole membership scenario of things was, um, what drew a lot of people to those, clubs, because it wasn't easy to get in. You had to know someone,
mhm,
that worked at the clubs or a member to, actually get into those clubs. But once you got in, you was thrown into this world of fantasy, and escapism beyond normal reality, I think, and
Mhm.
so I think that was the beautiful thing. Again, to see people that remind you of stars that were on TV and things because they really went out of their way to dress and be in outfits or do, something unique to them dancing. They had this one guy, what was his name? Was it Jello or he was this character that he would always, put on this theatrical show for you talking, and one of his key things, he would be upstairs, and he's like, "I'm melting." He would the drama and everything, you went to just see him, and sometimes I sit and just watch him,
Uh,
like, he had this just, outwardly this outward character that, just drew you in, and then he would dance sometime, and he would just do this dance where his hand was out, and he would just spin around and around and around, and you just watch him. I was like, he got to get dizzy or something at some point, but there was this dance, this uniqueness of this dance, and then you had this one girl, Pam Poopalala, that she ended up dancing for Prince at one point even,
wow.
but she had this dance where she really you just went back to see her dance, and she had this dance partner, Ruben. Then Ruben became a good friend of mine and everything, but he had this way of him dancing, but you had all these different characters
Mm.
that you went back you not only thought about the music, you thought about, "I can't wait to get back to see Ruben.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't wait to see Pam." Gentle, it wasn't Jello, it was
Mm.
Gentle was his name. But I always had it in my head, I can't wait to get back to him, just say, "He's melting."
But it's like that
Uh-huh,
inspiring fantasy
uh-huh.
world. When I first went to Turnmills to trade
I remember with
in
Lawrence
London,
and
yeah, with
everybody,
Lawrence,
yeah.
and I remember it was before I knew Lawrence, but
Uh,
I walked down the stairs and, I was just like, "Where do these people what do they do during the week?" And
uh,
there were some characters there. I remember
yeah,
some
the 2
really
different rooms
Oh,
too,
yeah.
yeah.
I remember some really fierce, like, black ballerina queens,
Uh,
and I used to be like, "What do these people do during the week?" It was just such a head trip of possibility
uh,
and a different way to live
yeah,
and, finding community. Was the warehouse every week?
yeah,
Yeah, it was
it's
every
every
week,
week, Friday and Saturday.
Friday and
And same
Saturday.
with Paradise Garage, Friday and Saturday. Friday was straight night, Saturday was gay night. But everybody intermingled in together.
Yeah.
And the more you catered these venues, you became a family member with people. And,
Mm.
this is where like it was a family outside of my normal family,
Mhm.
and people that accepted me, that didn't judge me, and I think that was probably the fascinating probably the same with turnmills of
Mm.
different places there in England. Those environments you could go into and you were accepted.
And also seeing queer people doing amazing things, like seeing
Mhm,
queer DJs being really skilled
mhm,
and knowing their shit, and that was really inspiring for me
mhm,
because up until then, the queer people I had seen were on
mhm,
TV and they were the funny
mhm,
person or they were a news article,
mhm,
and there wasn't really much reason to, like, think
mhm,
that it was well welcomed or to get
mhm,
excited about it, but in clubs, I started to see queer people
mhm,
doing excellent things.
yeah.
Were you playing at Paradise Garage?
I performed there, yeah, I performed there. At one point, I because I worked with the 2 different groups, so I go on stage with the IT group.
This whole conversation's giving me shivers. It's like sorry to interrupt you.
I go on the stage with the IT, which was me and Harold Dennis, and I'd sing
The
Donnie,
It.
yeah, the IT
That's a
group,
hot
so
name.
that was the first IT was me and, Harold Dennis, which I wasn't supposed to be in the group, I was with Fingers Inc.
Mhm.
And so the first track with, Harold Dennis came over to my house because I had been a DJ then. He knew about me DJing around Chicago and different places, and so he wanted me to pick his first track on for coming out, which I didn't know Larry Heard was even involved in the track, they kept that under lids for the longest, but he came with a group of tracks, and I just said, "I think this should be your first track." So he asked me to come to the studio with him and help him through the track, and Chip E was producing the track.
Mhm.
So I thought it was him and Chip E that produced the music. Later in life, I find out Larry was involved somehow. But at first, the first production of the It's track was me, Chippy, and Harold Dennis, and I was in the booth with Harold Dennis I was just there to give him some, like, notes,
Uh-huh.
on what I thought he should do, and, Chip was like, "Oh, say that again, Robert," and he was recording every time I would say something because I was like, "Maybe you should go like dun da dun dun da dun dun dun," in the beginning. He's like, "Okay," and then they would say, "Well, Robert, throw a little hook in there," and then I was like, "I can't quite understand," and they had me throw a couple things in there. But I was like, "Now, you know I'm with the group Fingers Inc., so I'm just here to help out." They kept it, Ron Hardy heard it and did a mix down of it. It blows up in New York, and they asked us to come to the Paradise Garage to do it,
Ah.
and so, um, they asked for that, and then they asked for me to come to do the Fingers Inc. stuff, so Can
Uh-huh.
You Feel It, all of this stuff, Bring Down the Walls. So the 2 things became popular, so this is where I would go on stage with one group and come on with the next one,
Mhm.
which was mad back then to do that, but I did that in a few in Jersey with Tony Humphries. We
Uh-huh.
did the Zanzibar and different things, and it's funny to me to come off with one group and right back on with the next
Yeah.
one. There's 2 different people, and then later and one thing, why didn't you tell me that Larry was involved with the track in the first place? They never told me that at the beginning. So I'm thinking I'm doing something being nice, but I was like, "I hope you understand, I wasn't supposed to do that." But me being a part of the track was actually an accident.
Mhm.
It turned into something.
Well, a happy accident.
Yeah,
Can you
but
choose one of your tracks for the playlist from that time?
one of the tracks from,
That's a tough call.
one of my tracks from that
Yeah,
period?
from your early
Did people really like one of the tracks that people really liked that started as it came out as an instrumental first was the "Can You Feel It" by
Mhm.
Larry Heard,
Mm.
but it was always a vocal version of that track. So we always did the vocals at every single performance, and then eventually when I moved to England, or I think I hadn't moved to England yet, but this was maybe in '89 or so, I came over there and I was around Tracks
Mhm.
UK, and I was around the Warrior Dance kids, Leslie Lawrence and Kid Bachelor and them, and so they're the ones that got me to record the
Ah.
vocals down because they knew that every performance I was already, singing, and it's like, "So you might as well put it down." So from that, Larry Heard and them asked me to, he was like, "Well, let's take that version," and he had the Chuck Roberts version that he put over and then he had the instrumental, and part of the proceeds, went to the, Martin Luther King Foundation, but that's how the vocal version finally got released, but at first it started as an instrumental, but we did it at every event,
So
and
you'd been doing it on the fly at live gigs,
yeah, yeah,
basically?
all the time. Even coming over to England, every tour we did the vocals to that, and that's why they were like, "You should get it down," it's like, "Why?" But he never, thought about doing it as a vocal version. At first, he just wanted, let's just leave it like that."
Yeah. I met Larry,
Uh,
Larry Heard. He came to play at a
uh,
party I played at in London,
yeah.
and he's also another lovely gent.
Yeah, I haven't seen him for years, we grow and things happen, but lately he's come onto my Instagram and he's been liking things um, about some of the things that's happening around me, and he's posted some things and I've liked those things.
Uh,
So it's like it's possibilities for the future there.
it's a good thing about social media.
Yeah, it can kinda bring people together, but the thing is, I look back, to me, we were like brothers.
Mm,
And again, this industry and being around the wrong people can change people's
mm,
attitudes about their self, and I think the one thing about me that I'm grateful for, I could never allow fame or anything up or down, I'm gonna be the same person. I
mm,
would never let success change me and make me treat people any differently. And, I think that's the one of the things that, one of the senseless things I've seen amongst artists in this industry.
mhm,
They've let a moment of success go to their head, and they forgot about their root and forgot about the people that have been there from their early
mm,
stages, and I think you should never do that. If that's any sense of advice I could give to anyone coming
mhm.
up in this industry, never let it go to your head.
I don't think it ends well.
No,
You
no,
know, I
no.
mean, maybe
Yeah,
people get profitable or something, but I
mm.
don't think that kind of behavior, for whatever reason, for whatever justification, I don't think it ultimately brings you a sense of
No,
peace.
well, I don't know, but it wouldn't bring
Yeah,
me no
wouldn't
peace,
bring
no.
me no peace either.
Mm.
What was Larry Levan like?
Larry Levan, I had a few like you mentioned, the Dance Interior.
Yeah, I
I
wanna
was
talk
out at
about Danceteria because
it was
that's
a
high on my
beautiful
list.
club, and I lived in the Lower East Manhattan, so that was in that area. I remember one time going there, and he was just there hanging out, and I was like, "Oh, Larry," and so we just started talking. I think we talked about a couple hours even, and we went and had a coffee or something after that. I remember leaving the club with him and walking around that lower. I can't remember the name of the area, but it was Lower East Manhattan down that
Mhm,
way, and talking to him. I can't remember a word of what we were saying, but I did it. I just had a chance to sit there and have a personal conversation
mm.
because most of the other times it was just a little quick conversation before he
You
might come in the
play,
dress
yeah.
room and talk to us. But that was a personal one where we hung out, had a couple drinks and chatted and stuff. And I thought that was really nice, to have that experience with him. And then when he first moved to um over to London, I hung out with him in the for early stages at the beginning of, the, Ministry of Sound when it
Ah,
was
yeah.
first coming up and everything, and he even asked, he said, "Let's get an apartment together," and I was like, "Larry, now me and you in an apartment together, this could be dangerous."
So was there a bit of a move then from a lot of the US scene over into London at a point? Because you went,
Well,
Larry
I
went.
moved there in 90, I think we probably, needed to escape,
Mm,
the, in those early stages, it was really drug fueled at this period in the '80s, and, it was almost hard to escape being around people that it was constantly in your face, and, if you weren't a strong-willed individual or you locked it into your head you weren't a strong-willed individual, you would have got absorbed into that whole system, and I think that's probably where he probably wanted to escape, and I know I wanted to escape that, I just wasn't happy, and I thought I could be doing more, and the wrong people were just there and around, and so I think both of us coming over to England and many other artists, it was probably a fresh new,
yeah.
you know
Turn like, freshen it up a bit. I mean, I
yeah,
think, drugs, fashion, sex,
mm,
all of those things can be part of the scene, but when any of them become bigger than the music, it's
yeah,
like it's dangerous for
yeah,
the individual and for the scene.
yeah, and you have to have a strong will and purpose, and I said, "This is where, like, I'm so grateful I placed that barrier up that music is first now in
Yes,
my life. If anything that threatens my stability of sense of thinking and worth in that area, I'm gonna instantly block. I could stumble and fall, but I will get back up."
that comes from
Mm.
living it.
Yeah, living it and seeing a lot of people just dissolve and gone, where, they didn't care. I care about, just knowing that I've made people happy, people have made me happy. That's something to fight for, just
Mhm.
that little perspective
Is
of it
enough.
alone.
Yeah. Danceteria, I always think about if I had a time machine. There's a few
Mm,
clubs I would go to. I would definitely go to
yeah,
Danceteria,
that was a great club.
Basquiat and early Madonna
Yeah.
and some.
Even Save the Robots was an excellent little after all the other
And was
clubs
that in
closed.
Danceteria?
No,
Said
that
no.
was, a Alphabet City kind of
Mm.
area. Lower East Manhattan still too, and that I met Sean Lennon there. I was like,
Really?
we just started hanging out and talking. It's like funny, and then he eventually told me who he was. I was
Oh.
like, wow. I was like, but you sing so that was one of those clubs that after hours, if you might meet any Sean Penn or anybody, all
Mm.
kind of artists from film to music just migrated there to hang out.
Mhm.
And it was really a little underground club, and Choices with Richard Vasquez was another one in that
Ah.
area, and I started, playing there, and Larry LeBand played there, Frankie Knuckles played there, a lot of the DJs, that was like, another after hours home base place for us, you know.
Uh,
I DJ'd and I performed as a singer there. You know, Richard Vasquez, he was a great guy that, off and on I still see I don't see him, but, you know, we might touch base on social media or
mhm.
something. You know, he was a great guy coming up in that scene in that period.
There was a song you mentioned on your list, which was Love Hangover
Yes,
from
Diana
Diana
Ross,
Ross.
who hasn't loved Diana Ross? She's even been in my, links lately. I don't know if it's her or it's somebody affiliated in her company, but she's been liking some of my posts and
Wow.
pictures and stuff, and I was like, "Is it really her?" And I keep liking pictures by her and everything, and they keep posting all of these events and everything she's doing and everything, but I was like, "Wow, this" I was like, "This is beautiful." Just that she's there right now in my
Yeah,
life.
that Diana Ross track, when I heard that as a
Mm.
kid, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
it's
she's
like,
always been a hero
I
to
mean,
just so I had to put something
oh
by
yeah,
Diana
I
Ross
mean,
there. I
thank
could have
you.
put a list of her there. As a child, she's been, you know, an inspiration for me, you know,
Yeah.
and so for now for her to be there in my life somehow, even if it's just on the
Mm.
social media perspective, it's really, inspiring for me, you know.
And her story as well is just,
Mm,
it's
the
fascinating.
history behind yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's like a certain, I mean, she gets an iconic status from us queers because there's something inherently disco ball about a lot of
Mm,
her music. I mean, there's a campness that can run through her music as well. I mean,
mm,
aside from the soulfulness
mm,
and the grace, but you know, the stuff
mm,
she did, that Bee Gees track,
mm,
Chain Reaction, I think the Bee
yeah.
Gees wrote that, and the stuff she did with
Yeah, I
Nile
didn't
Rodgers.
realize they wrote that,
Yeah,
okay,
they
yeah.
wrote that. I played that
Mhm,
track once or
yeah,
twice because I just think that's
yeah.
an
Yeah, her
incredible.
whole fabulous that's
Oh
a
yeah,
real
the
the gay
video.
the whole gay clientele gets they're really in, you know, in tune with all of that,
Mm.
you know.
And the Nile Rodgers stuff. I read
Mm,
that when she went to work with Niall and Bernard
mm,
to make that, I think it was Diana. Did they make
mm,
the Diana album? And
and
she then didn't like it.
really?
Yeah, so she took it away. I think there was a bit of a disagreement and she took away and she had it remixed
Mm,
so that her vocal was a bit more in the forefront.
mm,
And they had a bit of a disagreement about it because I think Niall had tried to do what they did with Chic Records, where everything was
mm,
more equal representing in the music.
yeah.
And I guess she wasn't used to that.
Yeah, where the Ashford and Simpson, they it
Mm,
was more prevalent to push her up.
yeah.
You know, you think the Boss and those, "It's my house
Oh,
and
yeah.
I" so they did all of that,
Uh
you
huh.
know. I think they had to really push her for I think with that too,
And he said, and I think in Niall's autobiography, which is a great read if you
mm,
ever get to read it, but he was saying like when he started to work with her, he went out. I think he went to Studio 54,
mm,
and there was a Diana Ross impersonator, and he was like trying to tell her how huge she was with the gay community, and then
mm.
they wrote "I'm coming out."
Oh, that okay. I think I seen I seen
Yeah.
that in an article, that's how he wrote the okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, like, that's how
I
he
think
was
I
like,
seen something about that
you
in the
have to
article.
embrace the people who support
Yeah,
and love you."
yeah. Remembering your roots of, you know,
Yeah.
and that's I always say it's people first, you know? When I go to play, you know, I always say that, it's about people and trying to tap into their emotions and feeling,
Mm.
you know, telepathy-wise, you know, just try to sense and see their feeling. I'm always looking at people and, like, I can put on a track. If it looks like they don't like it, "You don't like that?" I take the track out.
Did you learn that from those aunts in your early days?
Yeah.
I'm sure they were a tough audience. If they
Yeah.
didn't like a record, they'd
Yeah,
tell you
yeah.
to
"Well,
turn it
put
up.
on another one."
Yeah, there was a
Uh,
certain level of having
mm,
your foot on the dance floor and taking the temperature and
mm,
kind of saying, "Does this work?" But similarly, the flip side of that is maybe what you were talking about, you know, in those early performances where you would go on stage and think, "These people are gonna kill me," is
uh-huh.
that sometimes the thing that people need, they don't know it, and
Mm,
at the start, it's not immediately well taken to. I remember
mm,
Mark Moore saying, like he was
Mark
saying,
is another lovely guy
he's a
too.
sweetheart when he was playing house music after being in the US, and The first few times he put on house records, it cleared the floor.
Mm.
And sometimes the things that change the world are not the things that are best received at the start,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, well,
know?
I've seen that. Frankie, he's the Raw Silk. The first time he played that, I was there, and he cleared the floor, and, like, I'm the only one out there dancing, "Oh, this is a great record. This gonna be a hit." And he played it about 4 times. The 4th time, the floor was packed.
Interesting.
So it's also you have to have as a DJ, and especially if you have a residency, you have to understand yourself and you have to understand the audience that if it's a regular audience, they're gonna grow with you, then they might not like something at first, but
Hmm.
if you're a mobile DJ, you have to be quick and spontaneous on how assess the room and how can I trigger and get a grounding balance here where I
Hmm.
can get these people to trust me and take them on a journey.
How do you feel when you sing?
Um, it's the place where I'm unconditional. So when you hear me sing or you see me in that atmosphere, that's me being totally open. Like in relationships, often in life, you have to put up shields, and maybe in bad experiences that you might have had with someone, it draws an extra shield there. But I found that niche area in life where I can just let go. Love me or hate me, that's where I've let go, and sometimes even emotionally, vocally, I might go into a trance kind of state where I'm just going. I was maybe a year ago, I was in California with the club called Ronda
Oh,
Guys,
yeah.
and, I played in Hollywood at this, club, I can't remember. It's the owner that owns Catch One is his other club up there, and
Okay.
I hadn't been to the club, and so I got there, so the whole gay community, everybody came out, and we were in the dressing room talking to a lot of them, and later I go up to perform, and then I was singing, and, I just almost went into a trance where I just started going. It's almost like I was in church and just giving the song, and it's like it was singing, "I'll Be Your Friend," but I just went into a state where I almost was in church, and this where, like, I fully had let go, and I just let spirit take control and just give. And, to know that, life has opened up a part of me where I can do that is a
Oh,
blessing.
wow. To be able to connect to that. Because for me, clubs are church.
Mm.
And when any of that connection to that feeling, you call it spirit, gets blocked, I kind of navigate away from that club. But I
Mm.
mean, that has been my church as a queer person.
Mm.
And that must be a beautiful
Yeah.
experience to,
Even mixing records at
oh,
one
yeah.
point, I've got into a stage where the intensity got so heightened with me and the crowd. We were just on this level of, intensity. To look back at those moments and stuff, that's like, wow, we were unconditional. You let go, I let go. Nothing could have got in the way of that.
Yeah. And in these tough times, that's still a place that we can go to and find conversation, connection, healing, and we have to look after those spaces.
Mm.
Sometimes I worry that it's becomes a bit too individual focused,
Mm. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I feel like community and solidarity, it's an action. We can't take it for
Mm.
granted. Like we have
Mm.
to find common ground and we have to be able to sit with each other even if we disagree on some things, but
Mm.
we find the things that we agree on
Yeah.
because I think that's where the healing
Yeah,
is.
you're
That's where a
right.
lot of the
I
healing
believe
is.
this as
And
well.
sometimes I get concerned, like, that we live in a time where people are going to clubs thinking, what am I getting? And they don't
Mm.
give any thought to what am I giving?
Yeah,
Even if
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just a smile or
yeah, yeah. What are you
an open
bringing?
heart. What are you
To that?
bringing?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have that on a door at the
Mm,
entrance to clubs. What are
mm,
you bringing
mm,
tonight?
yeah,
I think it would be a good headspace for people at least to ask that
yeah, yeah. It's a
question.
beautiful thought. Yeah.
The reason I mention that is because a few years ago, before the pandemic, I remember being in New York and I went to Danny Krivet's
Mm,
night at Good Room.
good.
And
I've never been there, I don't
Mm.
think,
It's his long running night. I think it's
yeah,
moved around, but he does it there
yeah.
now,
He's
and
a great
he's
DJ,
a
huh?
great one for, like, mixing genres.
Yeah, but that the whole New York in that period of, like, the warehouse and 54, music box and all of that, it was always this fusion of all these different genres of music
Yeah.
all mixed in together. You
Yes.
think artists like Blondie and stuff, that's where
Mm.
she got into the whole Rapture is a
Oh,
rap
yeah.
to me, you think she was hanging out with a lot of the hip
With Fab
hoppers
Five
and
Freddy,
everything,
yeah.
yeah. Sylvester and all of them. I was Sylvester's PA for a
Okay,
evening
we need
before.
to talk about that.
Yeah, I
You
love
were
Sylvester
Sylvester's PA for a
for
while.
evening. He played came to Chicago to play at this club, and, I was playing at the club, but well, I was first with a modeling troupe, Tony Mitchell's School of Modeling, and we did this party there, and he was one of the acts, and so they assigned me to him. So I take him to the dressing room, lay all his gowns out there. I think it was about 4 different, sequence numbers he had, and he's like, "Ooh, that crowd look kinda straight out there, honey. You think they gonna like me?" I was like, "They gonna love you. I play your music all the time." It's so uh, he
Oh,
was like, "Which
wow.
one you think I should wear?" I was like, "This little number here look good." And he's like, "You make me really feel relaxed and comfortable." And we just sat there and we talked for at least over an
Oh,
hour
wow.
and stuff, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm ready." I took him down to perform, and "You make me feel," and
Wow.
just to remember I can't remember the full conversation, but the idea that I just sat there with him for that time, and he wanted me to sit there and talk to him, and he felt relaxed from me just talking to him.
Wow.
But, and this probably stems back to earlier, I was saying going to Newcastle or somewhere, hearing the hip hop music, and I'm saying, "I don't wanna go out there." So, I I'm remembering that experience, and it's
Mm,
just a full circle how that came back around, but I
mm.
had that experience with him, Sylvester.
Yeah.
I've sat down with Miles Davis and after his concert and he talked to me. I have a book that he put me in this book after that, by designer, that did all his clothes, Koshin Sato,
Uh-huh.
which became a really good friend of mine and stuff, but I met him through Miles Miles, I'm playing, in Tokyo at, the Blue Note, I think it was,
Okay.
and, him sitting there after the show and talking to me,
Wow.
but I come up with doing shows with Lolita Holloway, Grace
Wow.
Jones, Jocelyn Brown.
Do you have good Grace stories?
Great me and her brother Chris was really close.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I did, the Gay Olympics with Grace in
Mhm.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, she has a gay brother.
Yeah,
Is that
Chris,
Chris?
yeah, we
Yeah.
were really close. I was
Okay.
close to the brother, we
Yeah.
hung out and everything.
Yeah.
So I knew he's passed on, bless him. I hope you're up there in heaven looking down on us. But I hung out with him and, Grace, I did the Palladium with Grace. I did a lot of different shows with her, never was I was always closer to her
Her
brother,
brother.
but we did shows together, and it's just beautiful along the journey of life that they put me on billings with her
Wow.
in
Incredible.
different circumstances, and I was on billings with Jocelyn Brown in certain
Incredible.
circumstances. Lolita Holloway, I was on different billings with her in circumstances, and stories with her, she was one of them real motherly figures, and so she'd tell you off and like the promoters, I did some party with her, in New York where, she's like, "Imma teach you a lesson here, baby. They brought me a goddamn check. I told them to bring me cash." Now she's like, "Wait till I go out here." So she goes to the stage and, they put on the music, dun 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 dun, laugh sensation, and she's like, "Cut the motherfucker off." She's like she's like, "I told them to bring me goddamn cash, and they brought me a check. You think I should still keep singing?" And the crowd looked and was like, "Bring that woman her money." And then they tried to cut the system off on her, and, she stood there like ain't nobody tried to come up on her. She was a big woman.
Mhm.
So and they went and found that money and brought her money, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Turn it up! Let's go."
Rightly so. I'm sure she learned to have to do that through experience. I mean,
Yeah, from
the
back
whole
on that,
yeah.
the salsa orchestra period and
Mm.
stuff, that's when they came up, and in that period, a lot of those women was getting ripped off and stuff, and
Totally.
they just had to be strong as
Mm.
solo women.
In the Grace Jones documentary, the movie, in
Mm.
Bloodlight and Bambi, she talks about always getting paid in cash because
Mm.
she just got ripped off too many
Yeah,
times.
but I was much closer to Chris, her brother, than Grace, but we did a lot of shows together, but never really just sat and talked with her like I talk with Jocelyn Brown and Lolita. We would sit and talk and have conversations.
You talked about, staying within the grace of love
Mm.
and staying well and
There
taking
but for the grace of God.
yourself out of situations or learning to take yourself out of situations that might be harmful to you and
Mm.
moving around. And I'm really interested to know about your wellness and
Yeah.
sanity practice.
Well, often that stem from relationships. You
Mm,
know, often this industry fame, it draws the wrong people, and
mm,
especially I think for, gay individuals, if they're shining, for some reason, the wrong individuals just gravitate towards you like magnets, and that if you're got a kinda innocent, open nature about you, you'll become too trusting. I've always been too trusting and let people in, even when I knew they were wrong for me, I
mhm,
still allowed it, so this is where you have to build up a coating and a strength, and you have to and which I didn't do. It took me a long time to just let go, and maybe that's an internal ego trying to correct something that could never be corrected, but the worst thing is seeing it and understanding and knowing this is wrong, and you still saying, "No, I want a little taste of it anyway." And, that's something that I had to personally let go of, because I think after a certain 2 or 3 bumps in the road, not to cross that road again. I allowed so many times things and scenarios dealing with people where I shouldn't have done it, and I
mhm,
knew better. And I think I'm grateful that, hopefully I've outgrown that. But again, you say
mm,
never, but I think I'm a much wiser person now, and that,
mm,
I don't make a lot of the stupidity mistakes that I've made, and that's dealing with people that could never have good intentions for you. It's self-centered,
mm,
reasonings why they want to be around you, and that's usually because you're shining and they want some of that light. They don't want to add or bring no light into your surrounding. They just want to take your light.
mm,
And if you won't give it, they become jealous and envious of you. And sometimes even if you're giving, it's a lot of people sadly in this world that just don't want to, they're not happy. So it goes into that whole emphasis misery loves company. They're
mm.
miserable, so they want you to be miserable too.
I think
But
I
yeah.
did something similar, and what I've learned was I kind of did it out of a queer loneliness. Like I was
Mm,
quite lonely.
mm.
Sometimes I was lonely in my family, I was lonely sometimes in my friend group, and sometimes I just would choose people or be with people who maybe weren't as invested as I was, but I
Yeah,
didn't
we've
wanna
all done that.
I didn't wanna see it because if
Mm.
I had to see it, I would have to face my aloneness.
Yeah, I've been there in the same.
Yeah, so I was kinda overlooking stuff or thinking, "Oh, I'll just keep pouring love into it because
Mm,
love wins."
mm.
And that's a lovely sentiment, but, you have to choose which part of the garden you water, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
and I
yeah,
kinda learned that through time was, like, facing my loneliness
mm,
and making better and
yeah.
getting okay with
Yeah,
my
and you have to look
aloneness.
at yourself and say, "Back in
Mm.
the room, Betty."
Yeah. Very that. Very that.
Yeah, you have to, like, snap out of it and say, "Okay."
Do you have any kind of practice that keeps you well?
Going to the gym, it's a real therapeutic thing about it, for me, you sit there and you lose, a lot of, any emotional baggage, lifting weights or even just doing cardio. And so I value that, doing that, and, the other therapeutic thing for me is going to shops and looking at clothes. Sometimes I just might take a rack of things and try them on, and then I'm not gonna buy anything, but then I buy a lot too, and it's like that's the other thing. I'm always trying to calm myself
Yeah.
because my house is just clothes I sleep on clothes almost. So it's like, I have a bad thing for that buying things, jewelry, clothes, hats, all of
You
this
have
kind of
great
thing, yeah.
style. You have
Oh,
great
thank you,
style.
it's enough of it, I could dress the whole
Oh, yeah.
block. And it's like sometimes I've had friends come over and leave my house with garbage bags full of clothes. I'm always giving
Mm.
things away because, I collect things. Even in airports, I could be bored, and if it's a delay on the flight, I end up in the shops
Oh, yeah.
and buying things and giving things away though a lot. So I think that's where I balance it out is to say, well, it's not too bad because I'm always on myself. You're buying too much. Why are you buying this? But it's like, but you do give some things away.
Mm. And there's worse habits
So,
to lean on, you know.
yeah.
Do you have music that you lean on in tough times? Something that you go back to that's healing for you?
Um, Not necessarily, off and on, like on a lot of the say something like Instagram, a lot of people post different tracks or something, and I'll always retag a track or something I hear. Like even yesterday, I think it was the I'm wishing on a star popped up, and I was like, oh, that used to be my jam, and I'll retag that.
Uh,
So now people just post things and I'll retag them out of memory of them. But
mhm.
for me to just sit and just to channel and look up of any old tracks,
Or an
not
artist?
necessarily because I'm constantly producing and
Yes.
creating and making tracks. I'm in the studio a lot, and somebody asked me about catalog with me. I was like, if you go to Beatport, YouTube, Track Source, you'll see over 1,000 things by
Mm.
me. People don't really realize the amount of music that I have out there
Yeah.
right now that I've
Uh-huh.
worked with different artists on, and I'm constantly in the studio working and developing on music. So that might be a factor in why I'm not channeling back to the past and
Yes.
listening to a lot of
You're
things.
still looking forward.
Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
working on at the moment?
I have an album series out called Naked, and it's naked in the sense of vulnerability. I expose my heart, my emotions to you naked.
Mm.
And it's a fusion of me working with a variety of different artists. So Naked Part 1 is up there. Naked Part 2 comes out the 6th of September.
Ah,
So
great.
if you get a chance, maybe check it
It's
out.
good
But it's a
timing.
4-part series, and there's a couple remix packages that are out there available. But if you go online and just look up Robert Owens Naked, you'll see what's there, and you'll see the fusion of me working with different artists from techno to house.
Uh-huh.
It's all different things, and there's a couple ballads on the new one. There's a ballad with this band called the Backtrack Band, which is a German band I worked with here.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to make it multifaceted, the
Uh-huh.
whole viewpoint of it. And the ending result, let's see what will happen. I have an idea of what I want to do, but it's going to be beautiful when it finally materializes the whole 4-part
Uh-huh.
series.
Well, we will
Mm,
look forward to that and promo that as well. I look
Thank you
forward
so
to.
much.
And where can people find you on social media?
This is Robert Owens on
Yeah,
Instagram, and I'm there on Facebook, Robert Owens 2 on Facebook.
great.
And I sometimes, play at Sisyphos here. I'm at Electric Mondays at Kid Kat.
I must say they're lucky to have you, and I feel very lucky to have got
Thank
to
you
spoken
so
to you
much.
today, Robert. It's
I'm
such a pleasure.
grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Such a gift. You've been listening to Queerly Beloved with me, Cormac. Since you've listened right to the end, I wanted to give you a heads up that for each series of Queerly Beloved, I want to start highlighting the work of a queer charity or organisation worth supporting. For season 2, I've chosen notaphase.org, a charity committed to supporting and uplifting the lives of trans adults through community and joy. You can find a link to Not a Phase at the link in the episode description, as well as playlists for all the music mentioned in today's episode and every episode. While you're there, please do hit subscribe so you don't miss out on my conversations with more talented people. A big thanks to Michael Lane, my producer, to my manager, Melissa Taylor at Tailored Communication, and of course to Amazon Music for their support, and to you, the listener. Until next time, take care of yourself. All the best. Bye.